Welcome to the Hearse Whisperers, where we give you an inside look at life in the slow lane and talk openly about the death care industry. We're here to pull back the curtain on what really goes on behind the scenes in funeral service, from the heartfelt to the humorous, the traditional to the taboo. There's a lot of misunderstanding out there, but the more we talk about death and grief, the more empowered we become. We're glad you found us, so please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you'll be the first to know when new episodes drop. Welcome back to the Hearse Whisperers. I'm Michelle DeBellis, joined as always by Dave Feeney.
Hello.
And today we have a special guest. Now, I always say our guests are special because they are special, but this is a really special guest. We have with us today Jenny Sando. She is the manager of Johnny Day Funeral Home in Matawan, New Jersey. She's a past president of the New Jersey State Funeral Directors Association, but most importantly, she is our friend. Oh. So we are here to talk about, first, a little bit about Matawan. We have some interesting Matawan. Dave always gives his trivia about local places, but since Ginny's living in Matawan, we're going to give a quick history on that.
Every town, everybody could be a hero for just a day. Matawan had its day. 1916, July 1st to July 12th. Mind you, World War I is going on in Europe, so everybody's nervous about espionage and all these other things. There's a German submarine prowling off the New Jersey coast, and they've seen it. It surfaced. And it leads to some mischief, but that's not what this story is about. This story is about the famous shark attacks in 1916, which led to the movie and book Jaws.
It sure did.
It's true.
Yep.
So let's go to July 1st, Long Beach Island. There's a young guy there named Charles Van Sant, and he swims out quite a distance, and then he gets a very bad feeling, and he swims back, and he's actually sort of leaving the ocean off LBI, and then he gets hit by this black fish that nobody's sure exactly what it is, but he's in 3 feet of water, and this thing just attacks him, and it kills him. And Charles Van Sant is the first death certificate in the country to say shark bite as the death certificate.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. Pretty intense.
Yes. So once again, New Jersey leads the way in a bad way. In fact, we have a photo, we'll show that, of the headstone for Charles Van Sant. Mm-hmm. So there's the photo of his headstone. So now we fast forward to July 6th up in Spring Lake, which is north of LBI. There's a busboy named Charles Bruder who works in Spring Lake, had a couple of really glorious hotels on the beach, and he worked in one of them. And he said, I am going to go swim about a mile out and come back because he's a long-distance swimmer. And the beaches, although people in 1916 didn't swim so much, they liked going to the beach. So Charles Bruder gets a bunch of people cheering for him. And most of the people heard about Charles Van Sant, but back then there was no TV or anything. So just a couple people knew something happened down the beach in LBI. So Charles Bruder swims out as far as he was supposed to, and then he turns around and swims back, but he's a little tired, so his hands are slapping the water and he's kicking erratically. Meanwhile, the shark has him in his sights. Shark hits him from the bottom, hits him so hard there's a big splash. People stand up on the beach looking at what this splash is, and this one woman says, oh my gosh, the man in the red canoe looks like he's upset. And she thought it was a red canoe because there was so much blood.
Oh.
So the lifeguards jump in their boat, and they row out to where Charles Bruder is, and Charles Bruder is disappearing, coming up, disappearing, getting dragged around a little bit. So they finally get their hands on him, and they drag him into the boat, and he is like half consumed. He has no legs.
Oh, God.
And there's another photo of Charles Bruder's headstone. So now already New Jersey has the headlines, and there's a photo of the headlines. The headlines are in the New York papers up and down the New Jersey coast that 2 people have been killed in 5 days off the Jersey shore. Mm-hmm. So that was also another first, the first ever coast-wide shark warning. So no matter what beach you went to, you were told, don't go swimming, there's sharks. And up to this point, people didn't realize how dangerous sharks were. Most scientists thought they didn't have enough strength to break your bones with their teeth or their jaws. Okay, so anyway, now we're up to July 11th, Matawan Creek. There's a young guy named Rennie Carton who goes swimming in the creek, and it is in July, and most of the kids go swimming. If they work along the creek in one of the businesses, it was a long-standing tradition to let the kids, they rip their clothes off, jump in the creek, swim around for a while, get out, and go back to work.
That was like their break.
That was their break.
Little cool
Nice
off.
little cool off. Okay.
And Matawan Creek was brackish, so it wasn't salt water, it wasn't fresh. And this Rennie Carton is jumping around in the water, and all of a sudden this black object goes shooting at him. He sees it coming, and it just goes right across his chest, and then he starts screaming because he's bleeding a lot. So it didn't attack him, but he got out of the water, and he was just all bloody. Nobody knows what's going on. Nobody connects it with the other attacks. So we can show the map of New Jersey here, because now we're up in Matawan. You can see down south is LBI, with Long Beach Island, and then further up is Spring Lake, and then it just kind of hooks around into Matawan Creek. And then we have a picture of the there's a train bridge by Matawan Creek. You can see some young budding artist drew this shark's mouth over the channel. And you can see, it's interesting that the bottom of the shark's mouth is the reflection in the water, so it looks like the shark is really doing it. And it's not quite where the attacks took place, right?
But close.
Close enough. So now we come up to July 12th. The kids, it's time to take a break, so a whole bunch of them jump into Matawan Creek. In the meantime, there was an old retired ship captain who was looking at the creek, and he saw a shark's fin heading up the creek. And just like in the movie Jaws, Spielberg pays homage to this captain. This captain is yelling, there's a shark in the creek, it's heading up, and nobody pays attention.
Yeah.
It's kind of just like the girl who's yelling, there's a shark in the going in, and nobody pays attention. So Lester Stillwell is out with his friends jumping around, and all of a sudden Lester Stillwell just disappears. And his friends don't know what happened. He comes up, he's screaming, disappears again. He's up, he's screaming, he tries to get to the shore, he's dragged out, he disappears, gone. So all the kids are screaming. One of the kids runs down the street screaming, and this Stanley Fisher, who's a big guy, well-known swimmer, very athletic, he's a tailor, and he hears that young Lester Stillwell has disappeared in the creek and there's something attacking him. So he drops what he's doing, he runs up the street. He just sees the commotion in the water. He dives in, and he goes out, and he's going down and up and down and up. Can't find anything. He's getting tired, and he goes down one last time, and he comes up with Lester Stillwell, who's dead, but nobody realizes it yet.
Right.
And he comes up with Lester Stillwell, and he's taking Lester to the shore. All of a sudden, the shark attacks him, drags him down. Yep, drags him down. Lester Stillwell manages to fight the shark off and get to the shore, Stanley Fisher rather, not Lester Stillwell, and he gets Lester to the shore. He gets to the shore, terrible wounds. They get him out of the water, and there's no hospital nearby that can help him, so he's going to get a train to, I guess, New York or Asbury Park or somewhere, but the train isn't going to be there for another 2 hours or so.
Oh, my God.
Stanley Fisher bleeds to death.
Oh.
And then there's another young guy in the water at the same time, Joseph Dunn, whose legs were severely bitten, but Joe managed to get out of the water, and he died when he was like 85. But here's a couple photos of Stanley Fisher, Stanley's headstone. And then there's also more photos of the headlines. And just like in the movie Jaws, everybody decided that they have to go out and kill this shark, and they're going out with sticks of dynamite, all over the shore and nets and things. So, but of course nobody got them. So then our story ends on July 14th, where the John Murphy and Michael Schleiser, they're just two fishermen. They have a little boat with a motor. They figure they're going to go out in Raritan Bay and go fishing. They have a 6-foot net, and they're dragging it behind them, hoping to get something. And they got something. All of a sudden, just like in the movie, the boat stops and starts going backwards. There's something big in the net. And just before they got in the boat, Murphy had shown Michael Schleicher this half oar. And Schleicher says, like, what am I going to do with this thing? And Murphy says, I don't care what you do with it. So Schleicher throws it in the boat. And he's one of these guys that says, maybe I'll need it someday. So they're getting dragged backwards. There's water coming over the back of the boat. Schleicher gets up, whacks the shark on the head. The shark is a little bit stunned, and then it tries to go up and get Schleicher. He just keeps beating it, kills the shark. And Schleicher happens to be a taxidermist. So he lives in Harlem. He takes the shark, and he tells the local newspaper in Harlem about he thinks he has the shark, big shark, 8 feet long. And so this newspaper in Harlem says, we'll sit on the story, stuff the shark, do what you have to do, and then we'll put it in our window so everybody can see the window. And we have a picture of that too, the shark. So everybody's all excited, saying, happy day, we got the shark. They found human bones in the shark. So then everybody's happy, so except the Museum of Natural History comes and says, yes, indeed, those are human bones. However, those are not Lester Stillwell's bones like everybody thinks, because they're the wrong side. I think Lester had bones missing from his right side, and these were left side bones.
But it was still a shark that ate somebody,
yeah.
right? I mean,
so there's some good closure there, but
not exactly.
They didn't quite get the shark.
Right.
So anyway, headlines all over the place. Woodrow Wilson was dragged into this whole thing, the president, because the whole Jersey Shore was paralyzed, and he had the Coast Guard and a couple other things just for a couple of days because he knew you're never going to catch the shark, really. Yeah. So, and then next thing you know, we're into World War I, and everybody forgets about the shark. But one interesting thing that happened in the year 2000, Peter Benchley, who wrote Jaws, apparently there was a couple of attacks in Australia by a great white shark, and Peter Benchley cabled the people who were going to go out and kill the shark and just said, like, don't go kill the shark. The shark's doing what sharks do. Why ever he attacked them, he did. So I don't know whatever they did. But all my research was out of this book called Close to Shore. Great book, page turner, by Michael Capuzzo, and it's from about 2000. But that's the story of the Jersey Shore. So it's really quite the story.
It is, and
how did I do?
We do try to recognize that every year in Matawan too, with the Historical Society. They work very hard to make sure that both Stanley and Lester are commemorated every year. They're both buried right in town at Rose Hill Cemetery. In fact, I passed it on my way here today. But they're right at Rose Hill Cemetery in Matawan on Ravine Drive, and we'll do a little annual commemoration there.
That's really nice
to honor them because local hero and. It shouldn't have happened.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know what I think is really interesting is whenever we drive down to the shore, and I'm unlike most New Jersey guys, I have no idea what exit number I'm at. You're actually driving over Matawan Creek. Never knew it was Matawan Creek, but I always thought, oh, finally down the shore. This is where it starts. But when you drive, you know what exit?
120 is where
so
it kind of
it'd be
lands.
just
right
before like
that.
the mile or two before exit 120. If you're going south and you're driving, you'll notice all of a sudden there's the tide and there's the beach grass, and you look to your left, you can see water. You think, thank God I'm at the shore. That's Matawan Creek, and that's where the shark came up.
Wow.
It's amazing. It really is. And once you know, you can't not know.
Right.
Yeah.
Every time I drive by, I think, I wonder where the shark,
Yeah.
But so that's the history lesson for today.
Thank you.
Thank
Dave.
you. Excellent.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So we have Ginny here to talk about lots of things, but I think one thing we really wanted to talk about is kind of the state of where we are with funeral service now. Where are we going? There's a lot of changes that have happened probably. Well, Dave and I have talked about like changes from the time when Dave was starting out, young funeral director.
The old days.
Just a handful of years ago.
Just a handful of years ago.
Big handful.
To now, things that have happened since I've been around till now, it's so different. So what's your take on where were things when you started to now? Like, what's your take on that?
So, and I have the opportunity of having worked with Mr. Feeney here. He's my mentor.
13 years?
Many glorious years at Feeney.
Glorious years.
Yes.
No, it was great working with Jenny.
Yeah.
Outstanding.
And I consider Dave Feeney to be the most influential mentor. So I appreciate you both having me here.
Did you hear that?
I
you hear that,
did.
Michelle?
So sweet.
But, there have been a lot of changes. Like some of them are, very over the top, like the increase of cremation and things like that. But I think there's a lot of subtle changes, like in the philosophy of what we do and how we do it and how we lean in and connect with families, the families that we're so honored to serve. I feel like there was so much wonderful tradition and formality with funeral service but what I feel like is more important, moving forward, especially as people try to conceptualize the value of what we do. I think that such a huge anchor point is really on how much we connect with people and how much people can walk away and say, wow, I just sat down with Michelle and you know what, she really listened to me. I feel like I've been seen by her. I feel like, my person that I came here for, I feel like they matter to Michelle, that is kind of the trajectory that I think is best also served for funeral service because, people want to be seen. People want to be heard. People want to know that they matter, like without a shadow of a doubt. So they're able to walk away and be like, wow, maybe it doesn't have to be the most expensive funeral in the whole world and, over the top, but what matters is right here in the heart. And so I always that's been such a touch point for me. I love, when I have the honor to connect with a family, I love to lean in, and, yes, you have to, plan a funeral, plan a memorial service, take care of mom or dad, that's so, so important. But so is everything around it, that conversation, that memory share, that really that connection, because sometimes it can be, some people don't want to connect, it could be just, please, can we just get this taken care of? It's like, absolutely, that's fine. That's what we're here for. We'll take care of it. But to just, share time and actually companion people and walk hand in hand, I feel like that's so, so, so crucial and meaningful. And that's frankly what gives me such fulfillment in, what I'm honored to do every day.
Yeah, that's what I was going to add to that was I wonder if people, our audience here, realizes how important it is for us too, right? Like I always say at the end of a service or if a family's like, can I give you a hug? I'm like, yes, I would love a hug. Like that's what we do this for. Like we feel very fulfilled that we have helped somebody through a really hard time in their life. And I think you can really read people well. That's one of your skills. And so you, like you said, there's some people who just, that's not their thing, but most people are looking for that. And I think we got away from that as an industry sort of, we didn't have a choice, right? Because COVID happened. Everything became like a factory in a sense because there just wasn't the time, nor could we have the service that we wanted to have. And it's a little bit sad because it feels like that's the trend now. And we want to get back to like before, to before. And, how do we do that?
And to go off what you said, it's good also to give hugs.
Yes.
Like I've seen, the widow or the sister, whoever it is, and they're just bubbling with grief and nobody's giving them a hug. From their family and just say, do you need a hug? And they always say, yes, I do. And you give them a nice hug. And it just makes things better. It makes, like you said, it makes things better for you too.
Yeah.
Because you really feel like you've done your job.
Right. Yeah. Because, at the end of the day, it's like it's a shared human experience, right? We're all humans. We're humans helping humans. And, we're doing this in a really difficult time, on the worst time of your life. And but that is so humbling. I think about someone that's sitting across the table from me. They've never met me before, possibly. And, they're entrusting me with this precious person of theirs who's passed away. And when you really think about that is so deeply humbling, and it's such an honor. And you think about how much trust somebody needs to place in you. They don't know you. They might be familiar with your business, but they don't know Jenny Sando. They don't know Dave Feeney. They don't know Michelle DeBellis. So, there's this huge amount of trust and faith that they're placing in us. And that's huge. And and to really bring that to the forefront of our minds as service professionals, like how much trust that's being placed in us. That's right. And it's humbling. I feel so humbled to have someone place that trust in me. Right. And
they're sometimes you think you're having a bad day. And I don't like people that say, "Oh, I think you had a bad day. My day's worse."
One-upping.
There's only one person in the whole world who's really had a bad day. Then that's true. But you're having a bad day, and then this poor person comes in and just gives you the story of why the person has died. Yeah. And you just think, I got to help you through this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My bad day's not so bad.
Right.
And it's that sense of purpose, too. It gives, us as human beings that opportunity to, walk hand in hand and give you that purpose of, I know I can't reverse this. I can't bring your person back, but I can walk with you. And if you were going through a really happy, momentous, joyful occasion, I would share that with you. I'd be so happy with you. But if you're going through heartbreak, I'm going to share that with you too, because we're in this together. We're in this, shared humanity.
Yeah. Shared humanity. I really like that. That's
nice.
I think that's something, even the simple act of you knowing what to do for them is something I find a lot of families, they come in, and we've talked about like the tornado, right? They're in the emotional tornado of this has happened. What do I do? And just you saying, we got this. We're going to help you through this. We know how. And a lot of people will be surprised, even for small things. Oh, you call the church. Yeah. Oh, you're going to call the cemetery. Oh, you're going to do this. It's like, yes, we're going to take care of you. Yeah. We're going to need things from you, but we're going to make this a simple process as much as we can, because that's what we can do.
Yeah. And then creating safety too in that space, and saying like, whatever it is that you want, as long as it's legal and ethical.
Yes.
Right. That's what we're here for. And there's no wrong answer. So if you're feeling like you want to do something or don't want to do something, you're not obligated. You won't be looked at like, oh, you should be. There's no shoulds unless it's, a legal issue. Then,
Yeah.
But other than that, there's no wrong answer. Do what, the right answer is what's in here for you, whatever resonates for you.
Right. Right. So I'm sure both of you experience this a lot. Sometimes people say, well, what do you think? I know we've talked about that previously too. Like, well, what do you think we should do? What do you think? It's what you want to do. Yeah. Like you said, as long as we can, we're able, we can do that for you. And we want the family to have the experience that the satisfaction or the closure of the type of service that they wanted.
Exactly. They didn't feel like they've been pushed into or pigeonholed into something that was like just doesn't fit. Like putting on a shirt that doesn't fit you. You don't want that. You want to go through it on your terms. Because again, think about it. When somebody passes away, even if they've been sick for a long time, you're still in a situation that you have absolutely no control over. Right. As we have no control over death, as survivors of family members who've passed away. So to be able to have a modicum of a sense of control and direction that you can take and lead, there's something helpful about that. And you don't feel like you're just being pushed around or being led around.
No.
Right.
And like you said, as soon as they know that they have control and you're there to serve them, a lot of times the whole air changes. Yeah. Like I can pick the readings. I can pick a song.
Yeah.
And, even comes down, I don't know if I want to have viewing or not. I don't know if that's what mom wants. I don't know if that's what my family wants. And simply saying, what, there's no wrong answer. And again, like you said, you feel, all of a sudden you just feel like that slight energy change in the room, like a decompression. It's like, okay, it's safe. Right. And even it's safe to express emotion. I have folks that are like, oh, we're kind of laughing through this. We probably shouldn't be doing that. I'm like, no, that's okay.
Yeah. However you need to handle it is fine.
And it's going to be whatever bubbles up at that moment. You might go from you're kind of laughing about something funny that dad did, and then it might make you cry, and that's okay. And then you might get angry, and you know what? That's okay too. There's nothing wrong with that because we're given all these emotions, and to your point of the tornado, there's a tornado of emotions. It's that mixture of, sadness, But there could be also that bittersweet relief too. Like, okay, you know, they're not suffering anymore. You know, you're going to wish for a different outcome. You wish for recovery. You wish for healing. You wish that mom or dad was still here with you. But there's also that kind of relief of like, okay, well, they're not suffering. And it's okay to not feel guilty. You know, we feel guilty like that we're relieved. That's, you know, an end has come.
Yes.
But, you know, it's okay to walk away from that guilt because you know, you're not doing anything wrong by feeling that relief too.
No.
Yeah.
I know I've said a bunch of times to people who somebody has been sick and they're going to die and the family might be around the bed and they come in the next day and they're all, you know, kind of tensed up. And I said, you know, did you kind of root for him at the end to go? And then somebody goes, yeah, we did. And all of a sudden, like we talked about the air, all of a sudden it's like
changes.
this
It's
positive
like you gave
thing.
them permission
Sure.
to feel okay about what they feel.
because the person's been suffering and suffering, and
Right.
your natural inclination is to say, you know, go ahead, it's time to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but people, if they haven't been there, they'll say, you want them to die? You're like, it's not, wouldn't quite put it that way. But,
Right.
But you want them to go. They're suffering.
Right.
You know?
You want that peace for them. So whether
Yeah.
if that peace is in healing or if it's passing,
Yeah.
you know, that's what it is that we want for our people.
Yeah.
Peace and no suffering.
And along the same lines, I've had people who come in that type of a situation where someone's been sick a long time or their person is really of advanced age, like 101, 102, and they may pre-plan, they may be prepared as they can be, right? And then they come in and they start getting upset and they apologize.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so sorry. I don't know why I'm getting, you know, I knew this was going to happen. My mom's 101. It's like, it's still your mom.
Yeah.
Even if you're 85, it doesn't matter. It's still your mom or your dad or your whoever, your person. So
Exactly.
it's okay to be upset. You're never, I mean, I don't think being prepared is kind of a mental state. Like, oh, we're organized, we're ready, we're prepared. It's a good thing.
Right.
But it's not the emotion that happens in the moment.
Right.
Right. So,
Because once somebody passes away, life is different, you know.
Yes.
And like
Right.
to your point, you know, you could be 85 years old and, you know, mom's 101, but you had your mom for 85 years and now you got to figure out how am I going to live my life without my mom.
right.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a huge adjustment. And that's something that like
major life
squeezes your
change.
heart and
Sure.
you're like, okay, yeah, mom's at peace and, you know, she's not suffering, but darn, I miss her,
Right.
you know, and that's okay.
It is okay.
Like it's not comfortable,
No.
but there's nothing wrong with feeling that and experiencing that.
Nothing wrong with being uncomfortable, even though it's uncomfortable. But it's the right,
natural.
It's the natural process
Yeah.
to feel your feelings, right?
Exactly.
hard.
So, and again, you know, and that's, you know, as I think about the future of funeral service and people entering funeral service, you know, having that heart and that mindset of, you know, that emotional safety and emotional intelligence too. It's so important. It's not just about, all right, what casket are we picking out or what time are we going to arrive at the cemetery or the crematory? It's, you know, what's going on here? And I know that we're not therapists, but having, you know, that ability to lean in and listen and create that safety and that permission, I think is it makes such a huge difference, you know, and provides that relief, you know, even after just sitting down with a family for 2 hours and they get up and they're like, oh, I feel so much better, you know, this is so much easier.
Yeah.
And, you know, thank you for listening. You know, we feel better.
And also that happens when somebody comes in and maybe mom is sick at home and has a couple months to live, and they come in and it's like the hardest day of their life to walk through the front door, and it's just so uncomfortable. And I always tell them, you know, when you're leaving here, you're going to feel like a big load is off your body, and they always do,
Yeah.
because you've done the same thing, you know, pre-need, which, you know, we always say it's important, and it is.
It is.
Because when the person does pass away, 90% of everything is already done.
Right.
You know.
And it gives you that ability to simply be present and experience, you know, the death and the services and the honoring of the significance of your person. So,
Yes.
you know, if you pre-plan and, you know, just take care of all those logistics, they're out of the way. The research, trying to find, mom's maiden name, or mother's maiden name,
Right.
That's off the table. You don't have to worry about that. You can be present in your grief and
Sure.
in your honoring and in your, again, celebrating the significance of your person.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it alleviates some of the major questions or concerns that the family has of, well, I don't know if my mom would like this. Yeah. I don't know if my dad would like. He liked this, but not that. Well, if you pre-plan, you can ask.
Yeah.
Or hopefully the person is able to be involved. I mean,
Right.
it
Yeah.
would be ideal for them to be the one sitting with you, but even if they're not, it's easier to ascertain that information and kind of go back and like have more time to think about it. So I think it's all of us here, funeral directors, we can all help you in the moment.
Yep.
There's no need to worry if you don't have a pre-plan.
Right.
But if you have the ability to do so, you should, because it'll just make you feel so much more at ease.
Even just talk about it.
Exactly.
you're
Have
home.
that conversation.
Yeah, I don't. When my mother was sick and not getting it better, we were having a talk about her obituary, and we used to at the funeral home pre-Jenny, we had a little livery company called Village Livery, and my mother was the president of it because I have to eat at night.
Yeah.
No, but she was the president, and we were talking about it, and she said, "Oh yeah, don't forget to put down that I'm president of Village Livery." I said, "Yeah, we'll do that." And she looked at me, she goes, Junie has since passed on, her cousin. She said, Junie O'Brien's going to get such a kick out of that. And then sure enough, the wake is going on. Junie O'Brien comes in and she looks at me. She said, "Your mother made you put that in your So, but that kind of stuff, not that in particular, but right down to the casket, whether the person wants a wake.
Right.
I mean, they're laying there in bed and they say, I don't want a wake. Maybe you don't want to have a wake,
Right.
an open casket.
Right.
Instead of saying, geez, I wonder if they wanted an open casket, and you never ask them. In lieu of a prearrangement, sometimes it's good just to talk about it, know what you want, and probably the natural next step is to say, oh, let's go down to Johnny Day or let's go to Feeney's.
Yeah.
And let's get this in writing.
Right.
And also everybody should know that it's not in stone.
Right.
If
Correct.
you come in
Yeah.
and pick casket A today, when the time comes, you can switch to casket C.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, just saying.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Even like to the point of just having the conversation. You don't have to lock yourself into anything, but have the conversation. There's, I feel like there's a trajectory, in change in that too, like that mystery and that cloaking behind and not talking about death and certain things. And I think some of it could be generational, could be cultural, and that's okay. But kind of having that ability to kind of push the envelope a little bit and open up and talk about what it is that you want, or what have you seen, what resonates with you, what impacts you, and
Sure.
And I feel like just at the end of the day, again, it's I know we work with people that are like, well, I don't want anything, I don't want anybody crying over me, I don't want anybody upset, and that's fair, that's totally fair. But I've been thinking about it a lot recently, and I feel like what's so important is giving people the opportunity to celebrate your significance in this world and the impact that you as a human being have made on other people. Your existence in this space is important. And it is, like, I love that word significant, because that's what people are honoring. So even if they're getting together for an hour, they're designating that hour for you because you're awesome and you're significant and you deserve that.
Yes, and you've made an impact on their lives and also for the people gathering there.
Yeah.
Like, it is just comforting to talk to somebody. I mean, we have some mutual coworkers, friends that have passed, and I know, like, I just get a kick out of when we tell a story about somebody.
Yep.
And so that's one of the amazing things about having a wake or a memorial service is you're going to hear stories that you might not know.
Yeah.
You're going to hear from people that knew that person in a different way than you knew them.
Yeah.
And without that, you're just not able to share in the same kind of way. So I think that's like really important.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Well,
And
it
again,
is.
and that could take place anywhere. Like, I'm not trying to push, like, oh, it has to be, in, these four walls, from this set of hours. It could be as simple, walk on the beach and talk about your precious person, you know, but you're realizing and honoring that significance of that person and designating that time to do that.
Yeah.
And I think that has really impacted me a lot as well with people who are choosing more so less of a service, which is completely their choice. But it's a little bit difficult because I always think, but what about the fact that they were somebody?
Yeah.
You know, and perhaps their family will do something at a later date, or perhaps they will. But it's just such a shift from what we've seen in the past.
Yeah.
Right.
And I just would really like to get the word out there about how important it is, because there is like this sort of delayed grief or unrecognized grief, right? Because it's been handled as a procedure more than really making it about the person.
And I think too, you know, with, you know, your, you know, those formal traditional funerals that we've all experienced, I think that there was such a lean for funeral directors to protect people so much, to protect them from the pain, to protect them from the grief, that, you know, it's almost like we're heading in the wrong direction. We don't want to, you know, as much as we want to protect everyone from hurting, you know, we can't. So why don't we do what we can to support it and walk with it and share that space with people? I think that, you know, heading in that direction, which is, you know, I might be tap dancing on therapist lines there, but again, it's more about creating safety for people to be in that moment and feel that discomfort so that it helps them heal versus trying to protect them from it and sanitize it and, you know, shield them from it, because that just serves to kind of, like you said, delay it.
And the grief will facilitate itself later on, like in ulcers or and people don't think it's true, but it's actual energy.
It is.
And you're suppressing your energy.
Exactly.
100%.
Sometimes you get gray hair.
I mean, for some of us, no. No, I was just thinking that Ginny and I recently had a conversation. We were speaking with one of our newer employees who's also a student, so shout out to Brittany. We were talking because she has recently written a paper on Victorian-era funerals and how that was like a home funeral. Families were really involved. So we were just thinking, like, should there be a shift to that? Yes, you need your funeral director. Yes, you need our professional help, but like more involvement. And whether that is, maybe it's helping with preparation of the deceased. Some people are not into that. That's fine. But like just more involvement in sort of getting away from that sanitized, like, okay, hand us over everything and we've got it from here, because they have a connection with their person that we don't have, right? So what are your thoughts on that? Like people getting more involved in kind of the aspects that we take care of more.
So like in my heart, I'm all for it. But also I've been doing this for a long time, so I have that nervousness of what could go wrong? What could go wrong? You know, something could go wrong. But at the end of the day, I'm all for it, because, you know, having walked through it as a professional taking care of my own family, you know, it has helped me. It's been cathartic and healing for me to be able to physically do something. You know, it's like that last thing that you can do for your person, and like, they can't thank you for it. You're giving them a final gift. And again, that is a humbling, huge honor to be able to do that. And again, it's not for everyone. You know, it's some people, you know, it's just, nope, I need you to please take care of this, and, you know, let me know when it's done.
Of course, right.
But there's other folks that, you know, would like to do more, and being able to accommodate that and support that and companion that, I think is good.
And I think that takes a special skill as the funeral director too, because as you said, we are used to doing things a certain way to make things just perfect for our family. And it's all out of goodness, right? We want the service to go off without a hitch. We want your person to look their best and all of that. But so there is a little bit of a control aspect of like, we need to let go a little bit of that if the family wants to be involved, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I wonder sometimes if there will be a return to like a home funeral.
Yeah.
Maybe. You know, I'm sure there's a niche there, but will it become more popular? And what would be our role in that? We would still be there to help.
Yeah.
Just be different.
Exactly.
Like evolving.
I know this is going to be hard for both of you to believe, but I've actually had family members help me put blush on.
Yeah.
Really?
Because sometimes I can't see the blush.
No.
And they'll say, oh, the person, I think they need a little more blush. And I'll say, would you want to put it on? And being very sincere, but
Right.
knowing that if they let me do it, things might not go well because I'm a little colorblind.
Just a little.
Just a little. And I've had family. But all kidding aside, once you give them the brush and the blush,
Yes.
they're transformed.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, they're putting their mother's makeup on for the last time.
Yeah.
And they'll say, well, the lips don't look quite right. And give them the little brush. And
Yep.
I mean, years ago, I had people combing hair, like something wasn't just right. And I'll say, well, why don't you do it? Did you know just what it looks like? And it is cathartic.
It's
And
a
it always
powerful
looks
thing.
perfect because that's what they want. And maybe if the hair isn't behaving just the right way and they can't get it right, then it's
Step in.
okay if
It's
it's not
okay.
right.
Right.
As opposed to Dave screwed the hair up and he didn't know. No, seriously, he didn't know what he was doing.
Right.
Or so that works both ways. But I think it's so important to get the family involved.
And I think it folds into too that tendency for us, that desire to protect people. Somebody's condition might not lean into us being comfortable having family assist and participate, but we're also trying to protect. So, it's working on that desire to protect versus include and
Yes.
companion. And that's not an easy shift, especially when you have a certain personality and you have that, penchant
Right.
for, no, I got this. I'm going to take care of this for you. I'm going to protect you from this. And, there's a delicate balance in there. So striking that with each unique person,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's
tough.
It's tough, but I think it's worth it.
Yeah, I think all three of us would be surprised to know actually how many funeral directors don't do that,
Right.
which they totally shield the family almost to the point where they're shielding them too much. And it doesn't make them bad.
No.
That's just their philosophy. But I'm totally the other way.
You're totally other. And I think probably at some point, those type of people are going to have an open mind because there are going to be more, as generations are younger and more used to certain ways, they're going to want to maybe be more involved. And if Dave says, you can't do that at my funeral home, I don't allow that. And Ginny says, well, yeah, sure. Like, let's communicate. I'll help you.
Right.
The word gets out. Dave's,
Yeah.
Right.
open to this.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to mention one thing that I thought of when you were talking about the blush. I think Dave does this wonderful thing where you ask people if they'd like to help close the casket. And it's not a unique, maybe some other people do that, but it is so moving.
Yeah.
So for our audience, there is a piece of cloth that you're used to seeing on the casket. And so we usually place that inside with the person before we close. And Dave, you just say just a nice thing like, do you want to
Just tuck 'em in.
Mom in?
Tuck 'em in,
And
put it up
you
to
want
the
to help
shin.
us close? And
Sure.
it's awesome because typically at this point, it's like the very close immediate family and they just gather around and we just very nicely, they do one last thing.
Yeah.
But I was thinking of it because I thought, well, to Ginny's point, there are those people that are probably closed-minded, like everyone out. We're
Right.
not going to even give you the opportunity.
Right.
I mean, just think of what that means to people to be able to have the option
Yeah.
and say that they were there that one last moment. I think that's really
And sometimes
important.
they say no.
But that's okay.
And that's
But they
Sure.
say no nicely, like, oh, thank you so much, but
It's
Right.
not for me.
Right.
Yeah.
But they had the option, and that's important.
One of the things that I've done, and I really do need to incorporate this more, so I'm so glad that we're talking about this. But like I've had, we've been in the position where, parents are burying their child and, whether that child is, in their 50s or, in their 20s, a child is a child. So there have been situations where, again, I go home and instead of sleeping, I'm reflecting. And, I think to myself, I'm like, I really want, if mom and dad are up for it, to close the casket together, because I think about the fact that how many times are we the last people to see somebody's loved one?
That's really interesting. Yeah. I mean, it's obvious, but I've never thought of it like
Right.
that.
And every once in a while I think about that and it hits me. I'm like, wow, I'm the last person to see your dad or your sister or your brother because I'm the person closing the casket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's really interesting. It's kind of like if anyone's familiar with the prayers they say at the Catholic prayers at the end of the service, they say, "The Lord guards our coming in and going out." I probably be saying that wrong, but just think of the power of that.
Yeah.
Like you're there at the going out phase, the last phase of that person, and whether. Typically, even with a cremation, you're going to the crematory and you're the last person that's, it's
and there's something so sacred about that,
Yeah.
and it's not something to be taken for granted
absolutely.
at all, and so, and I feel like, a lot of people kind of think like, oh, you're used to this, you do this all the time. And it's like, well, yes, to an extent I'm used to it. But at the same time, it's important for me to keep myself grounded that I don't do this all the time for your family, for your mom. This is one time for your mom, or I'm picking on everybody's mother today, your dad, or your brother. But
and you've made a solid connection. Like we did an episode where we talked about when we get the first call, and then like all the stuff that goes on, right? So you have now spent, who knows, right? Who's really tracked countless hours speaking with this family, meeting with them in person, walking them through the journey. So, it does affect us when we're getting to the last point because we've made this like solid connection with you. And inevitably, we're going to have, who knows, maybe we've had a few laughs. Maybe we've had, we'd say, gee, would love to see this person. They're a great person. Like, I love that you're bringing that up.
And just think of the dread. I mean, at our funeral home, some funeral homes don't have couches. We do. The family is sitting on the couch, and maybe the clergyman comes in, and there's a 10 o'clock service. The clergyman comes in at 9:30, and as soon as the clergy starts, all the family's thinking about is, oh my gosh, it's over. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And then we come up and we ask everybody to pay their last respects, and the family goes last. And all of a sudden, you lean in and say, would you want to close the casket? You want to help us? And then all of a sudden the dread is put off a little bit, and they get to do something they want to do. Like to your point, we don't have to be the last ones to see mom.
Right.
Maybe you can.
Yeah.
Right.
But there's a lot of stuff.
That's very interesting.
A lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And
This is why I don't sleep at night.
Well, I know. I know. Well, that's another thing I think people really don't realize. Like, we all take it home with us. And I think that's a common theme for people in many different jobs, especially like a first responder type job, especially healthcare. But we take a lot of things home with us. We talk about situations we've been in or families we've like. That doesn't leave you.
Right.
It doesn't leave you.
No.
And so I think that's an important thing to know.
It is. Yeah.
I think one of the nicest and informative conversations I was ever in with a bunch of funeral directors was at a county funeral directors meeting not long after 9/11. We all were just swapping stories.
Yeah.
Do you remember you were at that meeting?
I don't know if I was. I don't think I was because I was still an intern at the time. I don't think I was with you yet.
Oh, okay. Kid.
Pretend you were there, Jenny.
Yes, pretend. But it was all
Dave,
of
I
the
remember that.
yeah, sure you do. But it was all the Bergen County, New Jersey funeral directors, and we were just sitting around. The meeting was over, and somebody said, "Oh, we had a whatever," and then somebody said, "Oh, yeah," and then next thing you know, we're all just telling stories, and it was so nice. As somebody would say, how could you be nice with stories like that? But just hearing what everybody did.
Right.
And you're letting go of that burden a little bit by sharing it with somebody. And
we do
get
burdens.
Lots of burdens. And I think that's something you can tell me each your experience, but I think like in mortuary school, my experience is that like therapist feeling that you have and grief and all that, it's there. We do it. We do talk about it. We do have classes on it, but it's like small.
It is.
And a lot of your education is based on other things that you need to know, of course, laws and bombing and everything.
Sure.
But it's almost like they should try to swap that a little. Yeah. Because so much of your job is the emotional heaviness. Yeah. And how do you deal with that? Yeah. And, you know, so hopefully maybe in the future we'll like shift.
I just have to say two things.
Yes.
First thing, in mortuary school, they totally wasted their time on me with the color wheel. Okay? But the second thing for our listening audience, these two girls graduated valedictorians of their class.
Oh, thanks,
yes,
Dave.
they did. Yes, they
long
did.
ago, but still.
I didn't, but I tried.
But here you are, still a great funeral director.
Yes, right.
So it's okay.
So,
All right. Well, this has been a very informative chat. Thank you, Jenny, for joining
Jenny
us.
Sando.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for watching the Hearse Whisperers. Please remember to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And we'll see you next time.